On America's Hope, we focus on the truth and lies in American education and how it's impacting your child from kindergarten through high school, or if they're a college student on a college campus in America. America's Hope starts now. From the NTD Global Headquarters in New York, I'm Kelly Wright, and this is America's Hope. Thank you for joining us this hour. We're glad that you're here, and we do hope that you're safe and well, taking care of yourself and your family because you matter. You know something else that matters for your family? Making sure your child gets the best education available. And many people are raising question marks about education when we see protests on college campuses where students are shouting death to America and death to Israel and seeking to eradicate Western civilization. And then what happens to our children from pre-K through high school? Many people are criticizing the education system in America, saying that it's indoctrinating our children to Marxism and socialism, and that's a problem. Let's get started by talking to people who are acquainted with the kind of pain and agony that parents like you are experiencing, who just want their child to be the best that they can be, to love God and country, and serve the world. Welcome to America's Hope. My first guest is Emily Sturge, and she is a Florida correspondent for Campus Reform. Emily is a current student at the University of Florida. She is studying political science and journalism, and she's joining us now to talk about what's happening on college campuses throughout the country, particularly given the fact that many students will be returning. Will we see a repeat, Emily, of what we saw at universities like Columbia, where people were chanting death to Israel and death to America?
You know, in the spring, we saw massive protests at college campuses across the country with these anti-Israel agitators. And at Campus Reform, we reported extensively on these protests. We've seen these protests kind of chill out over the summer. They've taken a little bit of a break. But I think as the presidential election ramps up, as we head towards November, we may see more of these protests break out. What we're seeing right now break out on college campuses is anti-American ideas. Anti-American ideas are being spread in the American education system. They're being spread in the classroom, and that's really what is inspiring these protests on college campuses.
Yeah, you're talking about something, you used the word inspiring them. Who's doing the inspirational, aspirational conditioning of these students to actually step outside of their classrooms and to chant death to Israel and death to America and let's do away with Western civilization?
The anti-Semitism that we're seeing on college campuses, it's part of a much larger agenda. This is part of an anti-American agenda to upend Western values. These are no longer just violent ideas happening behind closed doors. We've actually seen this anti-Israel student group at Columbia University say out loud that they're fighting to eradicate Western civilization. These are not violent ideas happening behind closed doors. They're out in the open. Students are letting us know what they're learning in the classroom because they are proudly stating these very violent and destructive ideas on social media. These anti-American ideas are being spread out in the open and now on social media by students.
Emily, why are they taking this approach? We're going back to October 7th, 2023, when Hamas terrorists attacked innocent people, civilians living in kibbutzim villages, as well as some of the cities there along the Gaza border, with the sole objective of eradicating Jewish people living there.
At Campus Reform, we're not surprised to see this. We're not surprised to see student groups at Columbia. They're saying the quiet part out loud. They're saying that they're fighting to eradicate Western civilization. And these are not empty words. This is a serious movement. This is a serious threat to America, to higher education, and to every student in higher education. This anti-American movement, it's a direct attack on our values of freedom, of liberty, of democracy, of rule of law. And this is a fight against anti-Semitism. This is a fight against anti-Americanism happening in our educational institutions today.
You were pointing out in recently about DEI being part of the culprit here in radicalizing some students to come out on these college campuses and be against Jewish students as well as against America. Talk to me about DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and why you think that has been part of the conditioning of these students to come out against America.
The way DEI is being taught in schools is what is driving anti Semitism at the college level. The American education system has fueled this hatred for America and for the West. These far left ideologies that students are learning in the classroom, particularly DEI, they paint America as inherently oppressive and apparently inherently racist. So professors are radicalizing students and brainwashing them to essentially hate their own country. DEI creates a culture of victimhood on college campuses. It creates this culture of resentment among students against their own country, which is fueling this anti Americanism, which is also fueling anti Semitism. And college students are unfortunately proud to have these ideas. They feel like they're allowed to have these ideas because that's what they're learning in their classrooms.
What are the, I've got to ask you this question. We know what they're learning in the classrooms based on what you're saying, but what are they learning at home? I mean, mom and dad are probably watching this, perhaps not even realizing that their children, who are now college students, are actually engaged in these kinds of activities.
Well, what they're learning at home could also be contributing to the fact that Gen Z is becoming the most unpatriotic generation. This generation is disconnected from America. We no longer have, well, many members of Gen Z no longer have the appreciation that previous generations held for America. Part of this is because of the DEI education infiltrating K through 12 and infiltrating colleges and universities. And campus reform highlights that there's an alarming trend among higher education. 2/3 of colleges and universities across America require these DEI courses to graduate. So these far left radical ideas have literally become mandated into our education system, once again, fueling this cycle of anti-Americanism in higher education and beyond.
Emily, how do we get here? You're part of Generation Z. When you look at your college classmates, how do we get here?
What students learn in the classroom, they take outside the door of that classroom. This spread of violent ideas, sometimes it's sparked in the classroom, and then students feel like they can take it out to the middle of campus. That's what we saw with the tent encampments happening among so many colleges and universities this past spring with the uprise of anti-Israel agitators on college campuses. Students took these radical ideas from the classrooms and then they put those violent tactics out on the street. These are destructive mindsets being created by professors in college classrooms. Professors glamorize very destructive mindsets like socialism and Marxism, and then students feel okay and they feel like they can take these violent and destructive ideas out onto the streets.